Hi, my name is Boston John and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm just making this video now to go over basically a mini fourth step. So I noticed in the last probably 5 or 6 weeks, I've been a little angered by things. And in my experience in AA, I noticed that a lot of times what gets people, not necessarily may drive them out, but the things that really get them sideways a lot of times are not the big things, it's the little things. So I stay alert, or try to anyway, stay aware of the whole death by 1,000 cuts thing. So it's not one particular event that may really throw me off the beam, but a combination of things. I had the idea of a mini four-step mentioned to me a long time ago. And I'm like, a mini four-step? What's that? I did my four-step. And so I was pretty dismissive of it because it seemed like AA light. And so already I was like, no. But the idea of it stuck with me. I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to sit down and do a mini four-step. So basically that's what this is. I did it a couple of days ago. I waited a couple of days to make this video to kind of get myself away from it and have a little space. And so I'm just going to run through these. I blurred out my fourth column for the moment. So I did this. This is actually in my journal. I keep a journal and I enter in it probably every 2 weeks or so. My entry on May 24th at 1:36 p.m. was done at the Orleans Hotel. I live here in Las Vegas, and I go to the Orleans a lot for lunch. I just grabbed my journal. I said, I'm going to do this mini fourth. This is what's going on. So the first one is just a woman's name crossed out. I even purposely put the word infraction instead of what they did. I was having some troubles with this particular woman I've been seeing on and off for several years. And recently the door had been opened back up again. We had been communicating, but it seems it was having an effect on me as well as her. And it's the on again, off again. So the fact that it seems like things were going to go in a certain direction, then they didn't. And then it starts to pivot back toward that direction again. So this yo-yoing really bothered me. And what I put for effects were sex relations, which was something common in my first four-step that I did early on in sobriety. I put emotional balance. It was throwing me off, having a direct impact on my mood and my everyday behavior. So, second one I put down was business is slow. When I was writing this mini fourth, I noticed there had been about a week and a half where business was a little slow, and that was bothering me. And the reason why I put that down is it doesn't have a big impact like the first one would, but it was having an impact. And because I understand that it's these little things that even sometimes I even know they're probably going to pass, but it's still bothering me. Because sometimes I feel like when I get in that mood, I'm just looking for stuff to bother me. I put this down that it affects my financial security and my self-esteem. So I noticed that some of how I feel about myself a lot of times is tied up into my business. It feels good to be, self-employed, to be carrying on in my own business. I take pride in that. And so it affected my financial security, my self-esteem. Number 3 is buy and building and all the hoops and nonsense that go with that. I need a little more room for my business as far as holding inventory. But stuff out here in Las Vegas, to me, is very high. And so it's been a while for me to find something that works. And so I finally found a spot. I have a certain idea that, hey, in my view, this should be pretty simple. Let's get it over with. And I put down that buying this building and all the hoops I got to go through and all these formalities were throwing me off. I didn't like all these little things I was being asked to do in order to continue on with the process. Things not going as I want, and I realized that the devil is in the details. All these little things are bothering me. Again, an impact on my emotional balance and affecting my financial security. So in order for me to buy a building, essentially I got to take all my savings, put them into the purchase of the building as well as getting financing. I go, I'm going to be cash poor. I need money to run my business, this and that. So these little things were having a direct impact on me. Related to number 3 is number 4. I'm having some issues with the realtor. I'm using the realtor, the seller's realtor. And in this year and a half of looking at property, I noticed they weren't lasting long on the market. When this one property showed up, it checked a lot of my boxes. I really wanted to get this property. To keep myself in a good light, I didn't get my own realtor. I let the seller's realtor deal with everything. I figured maybe he'll help me out. And then I put my offer in through him, blah, blah, blah. The offer gets accepted. Now that I'm under agreement, he isn't as appealing to me anymore. And one of the things I was worried about was that in this deal, nobody's on my side. To me, he's the seller's realtor. I know deep down that he's with him. At least that's how I think of it. That's what I believe. And I feel like they've known each other for a while. In my crazy mind, when things started happening, I feel they're conspiring. So that has an effect on me. When I first met this realtor, he threw me off. He's being over the top nice, almost like fake nice, and that really bothers me, and it gets me saying, well, what's going on here? What am I missing? So this fake nice nonsense, I use a different word, he's asking me for information. He's having me sign all these papers and check these boxes and put these initials. All these little stupid things are really bothering me. And even giving me insignificant paperwork that's nothing to do with the purchase, but just him doing certain work. He wants me to initial that. And this was having an effect on my emotional balance. And I got to a point, I don't answer his calls. I don't always respond to his emails quickly. So, like for instance, I just got an inspection done on the property. And so he wants a copy of the inspection. I'm saying to myself, not to him, I'm not giving it to him. I paid $750 for this. I'm not going to have you go and sit with the seller and go over it. But under the guise of, I'm just trying to help you. If I see that, maybe you can negotiate some of these fixes, which are all minor. And now he's telling me this on the phone. I had a conversation. I said, I got to talk to him. I can't keep doing this call. So I took his call. He wants a report, and I said no. And he was like taken aback by that. And his explanation to me was, if you give me this report, maybe I can get some money off. I said, I don't want to bother him with these minor things. I'm a big boy, so I'm not giving you the report. Just, I'm fine. Leave me alone. He didn't like that. And what are you going to do? Number 5, I notice a lot of this stuff has to do with this property. The title company, I had to wire money into them. I had to send them $15,000. And they said they'd accept a wire. So I do wires a lot in my business. I go to wire them the money. I notice it costs $25. But I notice for $3, you could take a 3-day thing. So I'm like, they're not paying for this fee, so I'm going to send it the $3 way. So I sent it that way. So what the title company said was, we're going to refuse the wire. And I go, why would you refuse the wire? She said, a lot of times what happens when you send it that way is that people can pull it back. Unlike a conventional same-day wire, there's no pulling it back. It's like they're accusing me of going to send them the money and then pull it back, like I'm underhanded and sneaky. And I felt accused. And so once that happened, now I started hearing from the realtor guy again. Hey, what's going on? And I'm like, okay. So the wire is refused. I remember saying to myself, let me see if I got this right. The wire is not that you can't accept it. They said they couldn't accept it. It's that they wouldn't accept it. And so the wire is going to be refused and pushed back to me, and I have to send it the $25 way. So the fact that they said they couldn't accept it, that bothered me. Some of these things have really, with me writing this mini forth as well, some of these things have really gone away. So the title company thing affected my emotional balance. It bothered me. I didn't like being told what to do. Nonsense with the HOA. One of the things that really bothers me, when I did my first 4-step years ago, I was living in the building I'm living in now. I didn't like dealing with the HOA office. I'd get these emails straightening me out. And so it really bothered me. And it stuck with me. But I decided that by the time I did my 4-step, that I was an asshole. I was difficult to deal with. having a third step underneath my belt, I didn't have these issues I had with the HOA. I could go into the office, I could be friendly. I still haven't gone to any HOA meetings. I feel like spiritually fit enough to go, but I left them alone. And I was just another donkey in the building, just like I'm supposed to be. I paid my HOA fees, and that was that. However, I recently got an email from the HOA saying I had an assessment that I owed. And I didn't know about it because over time, I had some HOA issues still bothering me, but I didn't confront them with it. So instead, I just blocked their emails and I blocked their text messages, and I don't take any communication from them because I felt a lot of times they're sending me stuff that had nothing to do with the building. It was like social stuff, come see this, come do that. So I just blocked them. And so it turns out I blocked the notice that I have a $1,700 assessment I owe. So I got an email directly from the work email of one of the people that work in the HOA office. So it got by my filter. I asked for an explanation and a breakdown, and I thought she was a little dismissive in the email. Feeling how I felt, I just waited to pay it. I said, okay. I started thinking of all the things currently that now bother me about the HOA. And so I put them on this list. 9/11 bullshit from the past. That isn't the planes flying into buildings. Several years ago in sobriety, I did something stupid. I was feeling a certain way, and I repeated some of my behavior from the past. In the past, if I were feeling bad, I didn't like how things were going in life, I'd buy a new car. That was my solution. Buy a car. I'll feel better. So in like 2018, 2019 in sobriety, I pulled that move again. I bought a 911, which is a little sports car. And it turns out I made an impulse buy in sobriety. I thought lack of horsepower was my dilemma. I wanted to feel better. Well, I didn't. I felt worse because the car sucked. It had problems. And I had to return the car. And that was a big problem. They didn't want to take it. Legal issues. I returned the car. I spent $36,000 for it. It went into dispute. So it turns out I went and got a lawyer. The lawyer sued the guy. We got a judgment against him. But if you have ever been involved with lawsuits, getting a judgment doesn't really mean much. Doesn't mean you're going to get the money. It just means you're entitled to the money. There's a line in the 12 and 12. Talks about the well-nursed grudge. I brought that baby out, and I started petting it again, coupled with all this other stuff, and that started bothering me again. So it went on the list. Affected my emotional balance. I started thinking about it again. And it hasn't completely been dismissed. Really, a lot of my anger is directed toward the lawyer I got who was in AA that I felt didn't handle it the way I wanted them to handle it. So that went on here. Another thing I noticed over this period of time is I put the pseudo and contrived interaction pre-AA meetings. Again, I didn't know I'd be publishing this or making a video about this, so I just wrote down how I felt. I noticed in meetings I started walking out of meetings early, even my own home group. And one of the things I addressed way back when was walking out of meetings early. If I didn't like what was being said, or was getting annoyed with the content of the meeting, I'd get a little holier than thou, and I'd just leave the meeting. What's been going on lately is a little different. I noticed I'm still going to meetings, but I'm getting annoyed with some of the handshaking and all the nonsense. I feel like people are imposing their will on me. I can't just go into the meeting and sit down and wait for the meeting to start. I got to have a bunch of these people coming over, shaking my hand, hey, hello, as if they're running for mayor. It used to bother me. And so they'd shake my hand, I go, yeah, you got my vote. And they wouldn't know what I was talking about, but I was taking a shot at them. I had a habit, a lot of times I go into a meeting, and I always carry my little mini big book. I'd go in there and read my mini book, and I'd be sitting there reading, and suddenly a hand would come in between my face and my book because this person insisted on shaking my hand. They didn't care that I was reading the book because they're going to go around and shake everyone's hand because that's what they're told to do, and that's part of their recovery. And I'd set them up. I'd sit there in a meeting purposely reading my book. So I didn't have to shake any hands. And if I did, I could get up and I could give them a little piece of my mind, saying, brother, I was reading my book here. You came over and bothered me. I ran to those issues. And I had to stop doing that. So I'd play the game, shake the hands. But now with all this stuff going on, that whole phony shaking hands and the whole frothy emotional appeals and the sharing was bothering me. I was getting annoyed because it's frustrating to me. So I put here again emotional balance, which is running throughout my list, emotional balance. In fact, this whole emotional balance is what got this list going. So I was having trouble, and still am having trouble to some degree, with this forced fellowship on me. Number 9, being sales pitched and nobody just being direct or honest. I get a lot of calls each day from people just constantly pitching me. I noticed when I get these calls, it bothers me. So recently I changed the shipping software I used. So with that come all these sales pitches and requests for calls. And so these people really love making calls, spending time so they can tell you how great their software or their service is. And it's all about them telling you how great they are. So it's bothering me that it seemed more important to them to tell me how great their service or software is rather than them telling me or addressing specific issues I had that I wanted to be addressed. I get it. I play with your software. I know what you're showing me. I'm familiar with its features, but I have this issue. Can you help me with this? And so these calls from the shipping software people and then some other people was affecting my emotional balance. I ended up directly hanging up on people, interjecting and saying, you can't help me. Sorry. No, I'm not interested. And I got very short and I just ended calls. And I'm like, I'm not dealing with them. The last one I put was the IRS and the amount paid. It affected my financial security and my emotional balance. I put that one last in my list as I was writing this at the Orleans, waiting for my lunch. I didn't put on this list that I had an issue with my accountant. And I got hit with some heavy fines in the last 2 tax years because it turns out, because of how I file, I did not know that I needed to pay quarterly estimates rather than simply filing at the end of the year and making a lump sum payment. I went 7 quarters not knowing I had to pay quarterly. My lump sum payment as well as these penalties got me all annoyed again. The IRS was on my first 4-step. Turns out I had to make a financial amends. I turned myself in, blah, blah, blah. But now, since I'm doing the right thing, I thought, no, you can't bother me anymore. No more busting my balls, this and that. Then they hit me with penalties. Then I had trouble with the accountant. I'm doing all the right things. I didn't appeal the penalties. I bitched and moaned about it, but I paid it. And the reason why this went back on there is that these issues had a direct impact on the money I had available to make the purchase of this building. So that all came up again. The accountant, all these penalties, all this money could have went into an asset and not wasted on the IRS. And all this stuff came back up again. I found them to be demanding, and I didn't like it. I have a trouble with somebody pulling rank on me and telling me what to do. I felt that with the title company. I felt that with the IRS. I felt that in a sense with this realtor telling me he wanted the report, the inspection on the building. I just wouldn't give it to him. It's crazy it sounds. People making me shake their hand. No choice. And believe me, I've had some interesting conversations where, like I just did one the other day, a young kid, new in sobriety, going around, making the rounds, shaking everyone's hand. Can't believe I'm back on this again. This happened maybe 2 weeks ago. Shakes my hand. As he shakes my hand, I'm looking directly into the camera. As he goes to shake my hand, he's shaking my hand, looking this way, about to go on and talk to the next guy, shake his hand, and do more for his sobriety. So as he's shaking my hand, I don't want to shake his hand. I'm not against shaking his hand. What I'm against is a guy shaking my hand and not looking at me when he shakes my hand. So I shook his hand, and as he walked away, I held it, and I pulled him back. Say, hey, brother, when you shake someone's hand, look at him. Mean it. somebody comes around, shakes my hand, looks me in the eye, shake their hand. But if they're doing it to check the box and they're doing it because they were told to do it, it throws me off still. Anyway, I feel a little bit better. If I'm going to sit here and make videos and talk about recovery, I got to practice what I preach. And this is the stuff going on in my life now. These are the things that were bothering me. And I understand that literature tells me that anger, resentment, it's a number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. And I feel that your life can be destroyed even without taking a drink. These things can eat away at me and really affect my emotional balance. And that's going to have an impact on the people around me. Of course, we return to our list. And where was I at fault? Where was I to blame? What did I do? I've returned to my list. I've unblurred the fourth column. And as far as stuff with the woman, I did the same for her for years, on again, off again. And I wouldn't commit. And I had to, when I made a list of all people I harmed back on my first fourth step and then, the eighth step, she certainly was one of the tops on the list. I did a lot of harm. And the situation we're in, all the things that I was upset about, I did them far worse over the years to her. And I had to make a tough amends to this woman in 2019, maybe. I had to do a tough amends to her. And we hadn't communicated. I left her alone. And things started to open back up in the last year. So my part was, this is all things I was upset about, I had done before. And so I put that down. I got the ball rolling. I fed into it. And I was, in a sense, I was repeating the same stuff out of my own self-interest and thinking more about me than about her. And that was my part. Business is slow. Like I said, it was just a snippet of business. But also I had done a few things. I got rid of my marketing guy. I didn't feel he was worth it. I didn't feel changes were enough. And so I got rid of him. That could have had an impact because then I started to make some changes on my own in my advertising, my marketing. And I felt, business might be down a little, but also I'm not developing business. I'm caught up in the day-to-day work and not trying to build. So I need to get more on the ball about that. So I took action there. Buying, building, the hoops and all that nonsense, and a couple of that in with the realtor issues and the title company. I had unreasonable expectations. I had a general overall moodiness. I was bringing anger and resistance to the table. I didn't like being told what to do, so I pushed back. I made people uncomfortable. When it came to the realtor, I had these insecurities about, hey, nobody's on my side. I agreed to it. I signed paperwork saying, yeah, you can represent both sides. So I allowed the agreement. I played his game knowingly, meaning I wanted to get the building. So I did things his way to be on his side. And then once I got it, I went back to me. No more Mr. Manipulator. Now I'm back to the asshole. And I didn't like being told what to do. I didn't like the agreement I made anymore after I got what I wanted. I sent the wire for less money with the wire and the $3 and $25 thing. Well, I took the $3 thing because I didn't like them telling me how to do it and that they needed it there in a day. Nah, don't tell me. I'm not spending $25. Here. I didn't even like spending the $3. Sent wire for less money thinking it could be an issue. I knew it could be an issue, and it was. And I was just troublemaking. I didn't like being told what to do. Therefore, no. HOA nonsense. Talking about writing, I wrote on an elevator sign. I didn't include that earlier. So writing on the elevator sign, bad talking them. Somebody got in the elevator and brought up the broken elevator. Bam. Captive audience. I started telling them my HOA issues. Get them to agree. Yeah. I loved it. I badmouthed the HOA. I was rude to some staff. That was a while ago. Curt, more so than rude. I wasn't rude, but I was brief and I was stern. And 9/11 stuff, I made an impulse buy to feel better. I didn't do any due diligence. Paid the price. I did it. It was my doing. The AA stuff and the handshaking, boy, did I go on a rant there. Sometimes standoffish, I admit it. I have trouble with that, so I'm a little distant. And I don't interact readily with people I don't know. If I know you, we've been in the meeting for a while, no problem. People I don't know, I have trouble with that. I'm putting my expectations on people, they don't know it, and it's coming out on my behavior and my interaction, so I got to cut it out. Being sales pitched and all the rest of it, here it is. I put down, I'm pretty rude and condescending. I interrupt, I correct them, and I go on the offense. Damn, I do. I'm a jerk sometimes. I got to stop doing that. These people are just doing their job. They're just doing their job. They're trying to inform me. Yes, they're trying to make a sale, just like I do. I got to be better with the hard sell, and I'm talking to a real person with a real job who goes back, has a family, kids, friends, and they got to deal with me, the asshole. And I make it uncomfortable. I got to stop doing it. The IRS, the amount paid, that's a curse word. I didn't pay taxes for years. That's why when I did my 4-step, my list of amends and institutions, all the rest of it, I put the IRS down. And I got right with the IRS. I gave them a lot of money, and I went on payments, and I did it. I got to manage my finances better and plan. I can't just blame the accountant. I got to take some responsibility. And so I did. I paid the fines, and I didn't have as much money as I wanted to put down in this building. Well, a lot of it could be with just, I'd see money there and I just spend it. Maybe I got to be a little more forward thinking. And certainly am now, paying quarterly now and being aware of big picture. So I'm more aware of that. So basically all this stuff, as we say, is of our own making and my own doing. So anyway, doing the 4-step, the mini 4-step, and the 4th column was eye-opening and got me to see that I was really off the beam. A lot of it was my own doing. When I say a lot of it, pretty much all of it. It was avoidable, and sometimes I purposely didn't avoid. I wanted issues, and so I set myself up, and I got to watch myself. And I notice a lot of times when I'm off balance, this emotional imbalance, I bring on more. That's like that well-nourished grudge I was talking about. And it says in that 12 of 12, talk about the well-nourished grudge, how it can make us miserably ineffective. And that's what we got here. So I got to behave, think outside of just the moment, and stop setting myself up and making others uncomfortable. It's not fair. Anyway, if you got this far, thanks for listening. Have a good rest of your day.